Everything, everything gonna be all right this morning.
Let's do these things, ladies and gentlemen, as we are off to the races once again. Another episode of It's Me Speaking to You. Thank you guys for hanging out. I know there's a lot of options out there for podcasts, so I appreciate your time. As always, support the show, support the sponsors. All the links to our sponsors are in the description of this episode. You know, it's cool to link up with this guy again. Recently had him on, God, when was it, Matt? It was last summer. He was on the Conspiracy Farm talking about season 1 of his podcast, Solving JFK, and he's about to be dropping season 2. We're going to talk all about it, talk about the book he's got coming out, talking about the show he's got coming out on Paramount+. He is joining us today, Matt Crumpton. He is the producer and host of Solving JFK. What's up, my friend?
What's going on, Jeffrey? How you doing, man?
I am doing very well, man. I'm doing very well. Every day I've got above ground's a good day around this bitch, so enjoying the day, man. Nice fall afternoon here, getting to chop it up with you here about one of my favorite subjects. This is kind of what, you know, granted, this show isn't necessarily just about conspiracies, but as it relates to conspiracies, this is the Mount Rushmore. Mount Olympus. This tops Mount Olympus. Is the first one that really got me into it, man. But, so season 1, let's recap a little bit about what we talked about on the Conspiracy Farm about season 1, how you got started and what you got going on now.
Yeah, thanks. So the podcast is called Solving JFK, and the idea is to have a meticulous podcast that breaks down every single issue instead of just starting at a random point. We start at the beginning. We go cover the whole thing. And in particular, cover what the arguments are from each side on each little issue. So in season 1, we had 27 episodes, recap and rebuttal episodes. But we looked at, you know, everything from the rifle and the paperwork for it, and how did Oswald get it in the building, and, you know, how did Oswald leave, and the evidence around the J.D. Tippit murder and Oswald's arrival at the tech, and then all the way to, you know, Ruby killing Oswald. You know, Oswald gets arrested, then Ruby kills Oswald, and that's kind of where we left off. We didn't go into any of the CIA stuff or even any of the Cubans or anything like that. And we also didn't look at Oswald as a person. You know, these main issues when it comes that you would look at in any criminal case, right? If it was like one of these true crime shows. So that's season 1, and we ended up having 15 issues in the conclusion episode, which is episode 27. We had 15 issues finding on, and 8 of them leaned conspiracy. In other words, leaned towards there being multiple gunmen or Oswald not being involved. And then 7 of them were inconclusive. But I did not find any that were, you know, armed to be in defense of the official story. I did find, like I said, 7 of them to be inconclusive. So we can always talk about the individual little facts on all those. But at any rate, so now what we're looking at is we get into season 2, and we left off like the first, I guess when the last episode came out. So season 2, we're going to dive into. Season 1 was, did the Warren Report get it right? That was season 1. Season 2 is, who was Oswald really? All right, so we are razor sharp focused on Lee Harvey Oswald as a person, and then around him too. So we look at, you know, we start at the very beginning and look at Oswald's, you know, his time as a kid, growing up. We look at him going into the Marines, going to Russia.
This Civil Air Patrol is a huge part, is it not? Him serving in that Civil Air Patrol down in New Orleans.
Civil Air Patrol. That's right. Summer of 1955. I'm in the heart of writing that episode right now.
Isn't that where he wound up his first interactions with David Ferrie?
It is indeed. Yeah. And that was really disputed. And there are 12 witnesses that in the Civil Air Patrol with David Ferrie, without a doubt. So that's definitive. So that's pretty interesting. But anyway, so we covered that. And then we're also going to come back to General Walker. And the alleged General Walker shooting nation attempt. And then we'll also come back to the backyard photos and do an episode on that, which I'm not really looking forward to because I like oscillate on those. I really don't. I don't know how I feel, and I feel like I've looked at all the information, but it's pretty weird. But at any rate,
when you say that, as far as like the authenticity of those photos, like the backyard photos, like what gives you consternation about getting into that?
Yeah, like okay, here's my biggest problem with him. Like I understand the whole like the, you know, Oswald said he even said, "Hey, this is someone's Photoshop clear. They've cut out that wasn't the word he used, but they've cut out my face and superimposed it on someone else's body, and I'll be able to
Right.
prove it." That's what he said to the cop.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true or not, but I think like my only challenge with that is that I used to think obviously this is a fake photo, right? Most of the other evidence tends to lean towards the conspiracy side of things, right? Like in my view, right, as I've laid out in season one. Um, so it's easy to go, well, then this is probably fake. But the thing I get caught up on is the HSCA had a photographic panel of I
Mm.
want to say photographic experts, and not a single one disagreed with the finding that this was original, and there had been no alterations. And they get into all this granular detail about like the markings on the film and yada yada yada. But I just at least with a medical panel, you have Cyril Wecht dissenting.
Yeah.
You don't. There's not really. You kind of have to go. I don't know. All these experts are wrong, and I'm right. And I'm not really an expert on photographs, right?
Well, and I don't know
What
if I don't know if Lee actually said that either. What you said about but part of his stops in life was that at Sugi Air Base, where he was basically an analyst, if you will, for all of this photographic satellite stuff. So I mean, he knew.
right.
I mean, I think when they arrested him or at his house or whatever, he had all these like thousands of dollars worth of photographic equipment.
Well,
So he knew his stuff is related to photography.
and then he worked at Jagger's Child's Stovall.
Yes.
That was like he gained real expertise there in photography. So yeah, he knew what he was doing. But the thing is, when I look at his face, to me, I think it's possible that the photograph is not a forgery, like the photo, and it's not Oswald in the photograph. That's kind of where I lean.
Well, and that gets
But
into
but
the notion of the two Oswalds.
yeah, yeah, and then there's also the whole thing about Roscoe White,
Yes.
and I don't know, like because there's White in the exact same pose, like in the exact same place. It's like, did they just cut out his head and it's Roscoe White's body? Like I don't. Why do they have those photos? So
And
that's
not
weird.
to just drop a name without qualifying, Roscoe White, if I remember correctly, is one. Apparently, there's been several people who supposedly this was, but he supposedly was the badge man, the policeman behind the picket fence firing the headshot. Am I correct?
Yes, and I haven't. So I'll tell you, D. Eugenio thinks that that's ridiculous, and so that's given me some pause on that for sure.
Well, then you got I think his name's James Files. He's another one.
Files, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, but Roscoe White, there's a whole thing of like his son found this like Foot Locker that had all this stuff in it, and it's like. Yeah, I think it's worth investigating in season 3 to answer the Roscoe White stuff. I don't really know, but anyway, so back to season 2, we're gonna start out with Paul Landis. So out of the gate, I'm gonna do a Paul Landis episode. I'm not gonna really get into the meat of season 2 until probably like the 3rd episode. We'll start out with Paul Landis, and I'm just diving into his allegations and all of his prior statements. And it's not a rosy picture. I'm disappointed with the outcome of my research on Paul Landis.
Help me out. That's the honest first time I'm hearing that name. Who is Paul Landis?
Okay, yeah. So Paul Landis is the he came forward in like September, and there was a story in the New York Times about it. About he was one of the Secret Service agents. He was the one on the right side that was responsible for Jackie. The one on the left side is Clint Hill, the guy that jumped onto the limo.
Okay.
And so Landis says that when he got to Parkland Hospital, he got in the back seat to help Miss Kennedy out, and in the back behind JFK, like where the top of the back seat meets like the car, like the metal of the car, he said there was a fully intact bullet, and he picked that bullet up, put it in his pocket, and then to Trauma Room 1 and put that bullet at the president's feet on the president's stretcher, because he thought, well, then that way they could process it in the autopsy. And he says that the bullet he found is CE 399.
Okay, maybe we did touch on that in that last time you were on. Anyway,
yeah,
interesting.
No, well, it just happened. It just happened. Yeah, it was kind of like a big story. But at any rate, what's crazy is the story is pushed by NBC News. Like all the that's who published it. Who like pushed the story the most. It didn't media. Pretty interesting. But I did a deep dive on all of his prior statements, Paul Landis, and he gave a 6-page report right after the assassination. He doesn't talk at all about finding this bullet. He talks about all these other little details like, oh, I found Jackie's lighter and her cigarettes and her purse and her hat, and I picked those things up off the back seat. You're going to mention that in your statement, but you're not going to mention that you picked up a fully intact bullet and put it on the president's stretcher?
What, Jackie had a pack of squares
Right?
in the limousine with her?
Crazy
What?
to me. Yeah, man, she was smoking. Yeah, man, back in the day, that was
I guess it
was
is a
the thing, right?
Yeah, I guess it's a little different back then. Anyway, yeah, okay.
But at any rate, so because if Landis is telling the truth, then game over. Single bullet theory, it's over.
Well, I mean,
right?
between
that's the bullet that came out.
Well, yeah, between that and James Tagg, that just blows the whole 3 bullets out of the water. Yeah,
exactly. Yes. So so that's the significance of it. So you want to believe it if you're like someone conspiracy side. You're like, oh, this is a puzzle piece that fits perfectly. But he gave several other statements over time. I don't want to give the whole episode away, but long story short, he's given a lot of other inconsistent statements where he never mentioned it, but he did mention other details that like are far less important. You would think he would have brought it. I don't think he's telling the truth, unfortunately. So I kind of dive into that.
And like, why now? Like, why? Jesus, 60 years later,
exactly.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, and what's weird is he's from the same suburb of Columbus, Ohio that I'm from. That I live in now.
Really?
He doesn't live here. He lives. He's gonna be at this conference I'm going to this weekend. Let's jump over to that real quick. So it's the 60th anniversary. There's all these JFK assassination conferences that are happening.
Yeah.
There's several in Dallas. The one I'm going to is the big one in Pittsburgh. It's the 60th anniversary Cyril Wecht conference at Duke, and it's got all the big names in the conspiracy world. Alec Baldwin will be there. It's exciting.
Careful.
Kind of a polarizing name. Like, my feeling on Alec Baldwin is that Jack Donaghy was hilarious. And I'm not going to focus regarding Alec Baldwin when I see him. I'll talk about JFK and I'll talk about Donaghy, and that's it. Anyway, but at any rate,
Third Rock reference, ladies and gentlemen. That's who Jack Donaghy is.
Yeah, so I'll be there in Pittsburgh Wednesday through Friday for the big. Tomorrow I will be in Cincinnati with James DiEugenio, my co-author, and our book comes out tomorrow. And then I'm hosting a talk with him at the Mercantile Library, this fancy library like event center in downtown Cincinnati. Tomorrow night.
You can't just gloss over that and that name. You guys got a book coming out, and he was participant. Talk about that. How'd you link up with him, and who that is, and what you guys got going on?
DiEugenio, yeah. James is one. First of all, he's Oliver Stone's like close friend, and he's Oliver Stone's go-to expert on the JFK assassination. He wrote the script for the most recent Oliver Stone documentary, JFK Revisited Through the Looking Glass. Yes. So that's and won a bunch of awards. And he's written several other JFK assassination books, including Reclaiming Parkland, which was the first book that I paired arguments from each side at the same time. Like he was breaking down Bugliosi point by point. And that kind of was the impetus for the idea of my podcast, just to kind of go point by point. But what else? So he's done all these different books. Destiny Betrayed, great book that he has about Oswald's time in New Orleans and as it relates to Cuba. But at any rate,
how did you link up with him? How did you guys link up?
Yeah, I met him in Dallas last year at the Kappa conference, Citizens Against Political Assassinations. First thing, right? I'm against political assassinations. Are you?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, I am too.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Wow.
So I randomly met him, and long story short, like me and him and the two other guys were sitting there basically complaining about how long we had to wait to get rental cars because there was a big like junior lacrosse tournament in Dallas that weekend. And in our complaining about getting rental cars, we were like, hey, we should go get a drink somewhere. So then we went to go get a drink and kind of ended up talking. And then the next day we went to lunch together after we went down to Dealey Plaza. And I didn't know these guys. We all just kind of like, you go to a thing and you become like
Oh, yeah.
short serving friends with single serving friends. Is that what is from Fight Club?
Yeah.
Right? He talks about. So that's what I thought it would be. But we started talking, and the French guy, Paul Bleu, he's the JFK assassination game. He's a professor at Quebec City. He started basically bringing up, hey, there are these certain topics that are indisputable. Like some things we're going to be debating about forever, but some things have already been proven, like absolutely beyond a reasonable doubt. Those things, they're like a chokehold, he kept saying, right? So we're sort of listed, well, what are the things that are indisputable that you absolutely, you can't argue? And then this is where we brought in another one of the guys was a lawyer, Mark Adamczyk. He's like a JFK Records act, but along with Andrew Eiler, who's another one of our authors. He wasn't at the conference, but he came in later. But at any rate, we kind of all, took a few chapters. Mine were the two I did was Oswald could not have been in place on the 6th at 12:30, and the other one was Oswald was impersonated by intelligence. And so the standard we went with in this book is clear and convincing evidence, which is like 75%. So beyond a shadow of a doubt, it's like 99. Clear and convincing 75. Preponderance is 51. Right? We decided 75 is the move. So I would, Oswald was impersonated. That one's a 99. But Oswald couldn't have been on the 6th floor. That one's a 75.
You say he was impersonated that day?
No, he was impersonated, period.
Oh, okay. Mexico and all that other stuff.
Mexico, but also that. And there's people who see him coming out of the back of the book depository. You got 5 people who see him. There's people that see him. There's the guy that sees him at Mac Pate's garage. I think his name is T.F. White, the mechanic that saw him, and it led to Carl Mack's vehicle, the military contractor. I don't know if you're familiar with all that. It's covered in season 1 of the podcast. But yeah, there's a lot of that's in the J.D. Tippett episode. Just to touch base on it while I'm talking about it now, after Oswald had been arrested at the Texas Theater, over, a guy saw somebody acting suspicious in a car, and then he went up, looked at the guy looked him in the eyes, and then drove away. And when the guy drove away, he wrote down the license plate, and then later he saw on TV Oswald, and he goes, that's the guy I saw in the car is Oswald. But Oswald was in custody. Possible.
Interesting.
And then but he wrote the license plate number down. They ran the license plate, and it came back to Carl Mather, who's some sort of intelligence contractor, but he's J.D. Tippett's best friend.
Wow.
Carl Mather testified Select Committee on Assassinations, and he wanted immunity to testify. They refused to grant him immunity, and so he just pled the fifth for every question.
Wow. You're dropping names I've never necessarily heard of. One question before you go on, and you said you had mentioned you hung out with like a French guy at the conference or whatever, and I'm not sure if you remember seeing the many-part series, The Men Who Killed Kennedy, where they asserted there was a French role, some French assassins. Did your French friend bring up any of that? Because I found that interesting, because I'd never heard anything about that until I saw that series, which... Yeah.
He's French-Canadian, so... But yeah, he speaks French for sure. No, not really. I think what you're talking about is the Corsican mafia guy.
Yes.
Which is I think they speak French there, and I think his name is Mertz or something like that, some sort of name like that. This is I've been aware of this stuff for a long time, but I have not dove into that because it's just kind of like. I know I'm going to have to cover Oswald's background in depth, so let's just do that. There's so many rabbit holes that
for sure
to cover.
But, so many.
But
just
yeah. But in the just for the book Chokeholds. So it's called JFK Assassination Chokeholds. It's out tomorrow, November 14th, and it on paperback and ebook. The hardcover will be everywhere else. It'll be like eventually like, Target, Walmart, Barnes and Noble, all that stuff.
Look
It
at
won't. I
you.
don't know if it'll
Look
be.
at you. Congrats, bro.
It'll be online. Thank you. Yeah. And we self-published. I learned how to do all that. That was a crazy learning experience. I kind of want to write more books now. So that's good. But I'm trying to think what else. The movie. Okay, so then I have this movie coming out, and it comes out tomorrow also. And so tomorrow's a big day.
Yeah, it is.
Now it's on Paramount Plus, so it's like clearly the biggest done. But I haven't seen the movie, so the producer's telling me like, hey, you should talk about it when you go on podcast, promote it on your show. I'm like, I don't know if you guys even put me in this thing. And like, I don't know if you made me look stupid or what. I filmed for 7 hours. It was just me. They have a whole day of just me filming.
Yeah, you definitely want to see
I'm
that
not in the
final
trailer.
cut. You definitely want to peep that. I mean, I'm sure they're not going to clown you, but you just never know.
I know, right? So I posted about it once, and I've just been quiet about it since then, just because I don't know. But tonight at midnight, 12:01, I will be watching that show, see what's what. But yeah, so
and the title again,
cool
and where can we find it?
I'm going to be driving.
I'm sorry.
It's called it's on Paramount Plus. It's called JFK: What the Doctor Saw. And basically the premise is they have like 45 minutes or an hour of like high def. They learned how to clean up footage now of older things. And they've made really high, clear footage of this reunion of the Parkland doctors from the 90s when they were all living. And it's never been seen before. So they basically are taking that original. So that's the new stuff. And then they're packaging it with 3 talking heads, like a centrist, a super conspiracy guy, and like a super establishment guy.
Gerald Posner.
And I
just joking.
Well, the establishment guy is Dr. Michael Baden.
Oh yeah, very familiar with him. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the conspiracy guy is Doug Horn, who is, he's kind of the man. I hope he isn't mad at me when I meet him in Pittsburgh, because I disagree with him about whether or not a helicopter picked up the body and took it and then landed at the morgue. He says that happened. I just don't see any evidence for it at all.
Took the body. Explain that a little bit.
I talk about it in one of the medical episodes, but basically, like, this is the whole body swap theory of the 2 caskets and all that stuff. And how did his head and his body look so different in the X-rays versus when it left Parkland? There are all these changes. And so one of the theories is that there were 2 bodies, and one of them was taken by, as soon as all the reporters left, they landed at the Air Force Base. I forget the name of the main Air Force Base there, but when they landed,
Andrews,
helicopter, Andrews, yeah, helicopter took the real body to the morgue so they could be working on it, and the other casket was empty. It was not that there's 2 bodies, that the casket that was like the pomp and circumstance they thought had Kennedy, that was actually empty, and they took his body, cheap casket, in a chopper. And there's a report there's like some report of someone saying that the body arrived 30 minutes earlier, but there's no witnesses at all that report seeing a helicopter land. So like, it's just, there's no evidence for it. Like, maybe it's possible, but I don't think it's not like in the realm of things that are supported by evidence. Just because it's possible.
It sounds like one of those things, where it's probably just kind of convolutes and muddies the waters. But it seems like something occurred. Like they did something to his head to make it look like XYZ to cover up
They did something.
Something happened.
Yeah, but the question gets into, well, when exactly? If you're talking to somebody that knows the case well, they're going to go, when? Tell me the timeline of when you allege these things happened exactly, right? So that, but if anybody knows, he's just some guy. He was the head of the medical records for the ARRB. That's Doug Horn's background.
Yeah.
So he's the conspiracy guy. I'm the centrist. That was my role. I'm sort of like the. Hey, let me tell you. Hey, I'm the guy who's had a podcast for 5 days. Let me tell you why the 2 experts are wrong.
No, but you do, and I mentioned this in our first conversation on
Seriously.
the farm. You do a great job of kind of objectively looking at this information. You don't necessarily come out of the box with like, here, I'm saying this information that just fits the side I've already, I've established for myself. You do a good
Right.
job of being pretty objective. I mean, we've talked kind of off air before. I mean, yes, your leanings are a little bit more towards conspiracy, but I think you do a good job of entertaining both sides. But again, at the end of the day, the information and the evidence is so obvious of where things really went down. But like I said, you do a good job of kind of objectively doing the analysis until the evidence just becomes so obvious. It's like,
I mean, I'll tell you what I find is that people who think that Oswald did it alone, a lot of them really do have good command of the facts. Some of them have better command of the facts than people that believe that there are others involved.
really?
And what I mean is just like a lot of people will cite folklore, or they'll say like the men who killed Kennedy, for example.
Right.
They'll be like, well, then why did LBJ have this party? You know what I mean? Where all these people came and yada yada.
Yeah.
It's like there's actually not a lot of evidence for that, but there is a lot of evidence that all these records they have regarding Oswald ordering the gun, the records, right? So I'm just saying, it's easy to be in the world of fantasy. Now, when you zoom, so I like playing on the actual playing field because there's a lot of stuff going on with the actual records. And, specifically on that issue of the gun records, the only possibility are either Oswald did it or the records were forged. That's it. Those are your possibilities. So but that helps you understand, okay, well, if you're sure Oswald didn't do it, then they must have been forged. Right? Like, well, if it's not this, then it's that, right? If we have a hole in the back of his head, we know it can't be Oswald alone.
Right. Right.
So there you go. But anyway, yeah, man, I'm kind of rambling on, but those are kind of the things that I have going on, and it's gonna be an exciting season. I'm looking forward to it. I'm changing up the format a little bit of the podcast in terms of going. I used to have like 15 seconds of music as a buffer between sections, and I'm killing that, and I'm gonna just basically try to put as much music as I can throughout, and then just go one to the next, and just kind of. I'll take music away for a while to have like a palate cleanser, but I'm just trying to perfect the format and everything like that.
And another part that I think is cool that you do is like in between, I don't know, every 2 or 3 episodes, you take people's comments and you talk about it, and you have like a rebuttal episode for things people might be challenging you on, or they might be affirming what you're saying. Are you going to continue doing those rebuttal episodes as you proceed with season 2? I
would like to. It's getting a little out of hand on the emails, I'll be honest with you.
I can only imagine. The shot came from the storm drain, dude. It was an ice bullet. This subject gets down. It gets crazy, I'm sure.
Well, yeah, and it's also like a numbers game. Like, when I first started doing this, if I would get 2 emails a week, I would be thrilled. Oh my gosh, 2 people took the time to email me. This is amazing. But, as the numbers went up, I would go a couple weeks without getting back to it, and I look down, I'm like, man, there's 150 emails here that I haven't responded to it. So what I do, like, I'm going to take before the season starts, I'm going to take probably a half day, and what I try to do is I at least document the issues, and I'm going to have a grand rebuttals at the very end. So to answer your question, yes, I'm going to do that for this season, but the recap and rebuttals is only like valid if the people happen to hear it in the few week period in between when the episodes came out and when I record the recap and rebuttals.
That's true.
People are finding out about this, sending in rebuttals like 6 months after I already recorded the episode. So some of them raise decent points. So I just, like anything else, I just, have a document and I put it in there. And when it's all said and done, I think I'll come back to like the master rebuttals, because I'm going to put a book out after season 3. I want to have like the other side of like Vincent Bugliosi is my goal. He's like Posner on steroids.
Posner on steroids.
He is. He's exactly. It's basically Case Closed, but written in 2010 and rebutting a bunch of claims and documents that had come out since '93, like in that 17. That's all it is. But there's a lot of stuff that he doesn't rebut. Like, okay, here's one of the strongest facts. David Mantic. You ever heard of him?
I haven't.
Okay. he is a oncologist, radiologist, like he has some other impressive thing he does too. But he's a smart guy, PhD. He's a doctor that studies X-rays. And basically, he went to the National Archives with his X-ray technology. This thing called a stereoscope and a thing called an optical densitometer. Okay. And the stereoscope lets you see things in 3D to see like if any patches have been applied to the photo. He used a stereoscope on the back of the original photos of the back of President Kennedy's head. That shows just like, hey, the back of his head's all good, hair in the back of his head, no problems, right? And he said everything else was in 3D, but that section was 2D, which was clear that a matte had been applied. Like that was obvious to him. And then the next thing is he used the optical densitometer, which looks at an X-ray to measure the basically the brightness of the white of the bone to determine the density of the bone. Okay. And using that device, he found that the bone in the back, like the lower back right part of the president's head, was 500 times more dense than the rest of the bone in his head. In other words, it was like a mat, like a transfer process. You know what I mean? Like, here's this hole. Let's put this in the hole, and look, it looks the same. Here we go. So this is a claim by an expert, right? So in law, if someone's an expert, it's called the Daubert standard. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. And there's basically 4 elements you have to meet to be qualified as like a legitimate expert, right? And this guy would be an expert under that standard, under a legal standard. So, okay, what I would expect to see is a competing expert, right? We have that on the ballistics evidence. We have competing experts. I would expect to see a competing expert say, no, David Mantik's research is silly. Let me tell you why. Right? So I look up Mantik in Vincent Bugliosi's book, and of course it's on the CD-ROM. I got to pull up CD-ROM converter so I can look at the CD-ROM. On the CD-ROM, he has 2 paragraphs about Mantik, and he spends the first paragraph praising Mantik, talking about all of his accomplishments and how smart he is. And the second paragraph, he just talks shit. Second paragraph, he's like, it's crazy that someone so smart something so stupid, huh? Well, all these conspiracy people, even the smart ones, are stupid. Like, that's it. Move on. Wow. I'm like, oh my God. You didn't even attempt to rebut the substance. You just literally talk shit. So once I saw that, I was like, okay, well, I am Team David Mantik until there's a competitor. There's no other candidate running in the field.
And that's always the biggest red flag in an argument when you have to resort to ad hominem attacks and not even address the substance of the issue. It's a wrap, in my opinion.
Man, when I hear people, there was this doctor, some psychologist. He was talking to Posner the other day on Posner. Like he had Posner on his podcast. It was on Twitter, and that's how I came across it. And basically he was going on about how people believe that Oswald, people can't believe Oswald did it because Oswald was so small and so stupid.
I hate that. I hate that. Somebody's so insignificant. Yes, I do. I fucking despise that argument.
No, it's because of all the evidence, you asshole.
Yeah. Yeah, but that gets into that. There's huge articles written by like psychologists and like why conspiracy theorists are so flawed because they can't understand why something so huge or somebody so huge can be taken out by somebody so significant. It's so fucking condescending, and I really despise that argument because, like you said, the evidence is so freaking glaring. Don't tell me I just can't wrap my mind around how something. Come on, man. That's why Posner, bro. If I'm old, but if he wants to do not that I'm a celebrity, let's box, dude. I would box that guy. Oh, I've had heat with that dude for a hot minute. Anyway,
funny. Here's what's, dude. I got the most negative feedback I've gotten on Twitter. I feel like since I started the podcast on Sunday. So I see Posner on this podcast, and my thought is, hey, this guy's saying all these things that are just going unchallenged that are not correct. 7 things, okay. So I tweet trying to basically argue with Posner, okay? Hey, here's these 7 statements, and here's my counterpoints. You know what I mean? So that's what I tweet. I preface my argumentative tweet to Gerald Posner by saying, "I respect Posner." I use this. That's a direct quote. Oh my God! Holy shit! I might as well have just said like the most horrible things, like people. So and I said I've never spoken to him, but I'd be happy to talk to him one day. So in other words, I'm trying to lay the groundwork for like a friendly, right? Like a friendly communication with him, just because I would like to talk to him and ask him questions about things, right? Like, how can your view be this, this, and this? And all these people tell me that he's acting in bad faith and whatever, but he hasn't done anything to me, and he follows me on Twitter.
Really?
And so it's like he's seeing this. Maybe he'll debate me. Maybe he'll engage with me. He hasn't yet, because I tried to get him to do. Oh, this will be fun. I'll come back to this. But long story short, people they were like, what are you doing? Who are you associating with? Like, I'm not, like, just because I say I respect someone. I guess people take that as like you think they're awesome. But I'm just saying, like, I respect you as a human. I don't like automatically hate you. And people didn't care for that. They were not happy that I said that about Gerald Posner.
Well, and he put some. I mean, granted, that book was however long ago. Case closed. It's absolute garbage. If you run out of toilet paper, you can use it in an emergency situation. Right. But he's in the field. He's on the field of battle. And granted, he's talking all kinds of shit with nothing to really back it up. But I mean, from that standpoint of just engaging, I respect. Game recognizes game and shit. But granted, that doesn't mean what he's saying has any kind of veracity to it. And he can easily be shut down. Really.
And also on show, and I've seen him on. There's a show called Out of the Blank podcast. Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
I've been trying to get a hold of that guy. I don't know if he's not feeling what I'm doing or whatever, but he kind of ghosted me. But at any rate, I saw Posner on. He went on that show, and that guy's like, I think he leans conspiracy. He doesn't have like a clear point of view, but I think he's on the conspiracy side of things for sure. And Posner was very polite with him, and like he wasn't a dick. And I appreciated that. So that's all I'll say. That's it. Like, just saying like, hey, I don't think this guy's an asshole. Like, that's a controversial statement for Gerald Posner if you have a JFK assassination podcast.
He's just one of those. It's clear, he's obviously a paid bullshit artist, or maybe he does believe it. I don't know, but I mean, he's been towing the line for the official story for a very long time, and I think it's just it does a disservice, man, to the evidence that we now know, for people to still be talking about single bullet theories, only 3 shots, all that other shit. I mean, it belies in my opinion, a way larger agenda, like I said, just to maintain that official story. But anyway, enough about Gerald Posner.
The thing they say that I can't get my head around, the craziest thing that he was saying that I just truly didn't understand, the CE399 is like basically pristine. It's not perfect. The back of it's a little dented, but it's pretty much pristine. Okay. And then we have the HSCA like F258, I think it is, exhibit that shows the pictures of like, hey, here's the pristine bullet next to one that we shot into cotton, which looks exactly like the pristine bullet, and here's the the human wrist, and here's the goat head or whatever, right?
Yeah. That's Sarah Wet shit all day, dude. That's Sarah Wet.
Yeah, those are like, those are all mangled and everything. And so what his explanation of how it could have gone through Kennedy, hit Connolly's back, shattered his ribs, shattered his wrist, and then still had enough velocity going to his thigh and looked perfect.
Because it slowed down.
It slowed down, but if it slowed down, let's play. Set them up. Let's entertain your thesis.
Yes.
If it slowed down, how could it have maintained? You're saying it slowed down just slow enough to not be dented, but it still maintained enough velocity to continue to pierce the wrist, shatter the wrist, move on, and then pierce the skin of the thigh?
Yeah.
Bullshit.
Complete bullshit.
That's just not.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's, I don't think you have to be a scholar to know that.
That's what, when I heard about that, like years and years ago, I mean, that's what I had so much, because that's on its face just such bullshit. Anybody who has any understanding of ballistics and human anatomy and the understanding of what, like you said, cotton wadding. Look at what it did with cotton wadding. This bullet supposedly did all this other shit, and it comes, I mean, it's an insult. It's an insult to our intelligence.
Well, dude, let me, I forgot, what were we just talking about? I said I was going to come back to it. I don't remember. I don't know. Oh, well.
Yeah. Posner. We were geeking on Posner.
Yeah. I don't know. Oh, well. But
You were talking about the site you were on. You wanted to debate
this
him, or
season.
the anyway. Posner was on some guy's show. He wasn't being
Oh,
a dick to him.
yes, 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 yes. Here's what I was gonna say to you. This thing with DiEugenio, that I have tomorrow in Cincinnati, it was supposed to be a debate, and I was supposed to moderate a debate between DiEugenio and anybody who would take him on. It started out as DiEugenio versus Posner, but Posner wouldn't respond to my messages, even though he follows me on Twitter. So I gave up on him, and then we reached out to every university professor within like a 2.5 hour radius, and offered them money and putting them up in a hotel, and 0.0 of them were willing to debate James DiEugenio.
Wow, really?
Yes. So, I don't know what that says, but
I mean,
I think there needs to be a debate. I think we need to have like a real so get in that game. I'd like to have a debate with somebody, but the problem is everybody hates each other. Like there's kind of some bad blood over the years. People have been doing this for like 50 years, and that's why that's why I'm trying to be cordial with people like Joe Posner, but like we need to keep an open channel of communication so that we can talk to each other.
Well, and that's
You
good.
know what
I mean, I think
like,
you catch more flies with honey than vinegar, and it's good that you are being very cordial. But again, this isn't one of those conversations like, do you like Coke over Pepsi? If you're on one side, if you're saying it's a conspiracy, you're talking about huge layers of cover up and malfeasance and all kind of criminal activity to cover up this huge crime. So, I mean, not that I get why Posner wouldn't want to step in, and try to get slayed like that, but anybody who's trying to defend the almost indefensible, I mean, I get it. I mean, especially now in 2023, how do you get up and it's great. You could easily write a book and hide behind that and hopefully people buy it or whatever. But when you get up on a platform in front of a live audience, especially in the internet world, trying to defend something like that, and that could go viral, like that's a tough proposition. And I get why somebody wouldn't want that kind of smoke. But at the end of the day, somebody come up and defend this shit because it's indefensible, really. And that's why you're probably not going to get a lot of people, not a lot of takers to. Yeah.
I had it's funny. I had my favorite college history professor. I reached out to see if anybody that could, take the Warren Report side, and I knew that was what he believed also, and I was kind of like, hey, I understand that you have a different perspective than me. That's cool. That's part of why I'm reaching out to you. Maybe you can help me find someone else that that would in this debate. And his response was like, Mr. Crumpton, there are some topics that are simply not worth wasting your time. Blah, blah, blah. But just like the level, and this is like my favorite professor of all of college. Like this guy had a band. I would go to his shows. Like I was tight with this guy. Okay. And last thing in our email exchange was me saying to him, I've never met someone who was so arrogant about a topic they knew so little about on purpose.
Good shit.
Like, so it's cool. Like that's the only bridge I've far over this. And
again, it's one
I don't
of
know.
those,
There's something weird about like university.
No, I mean, it's just such a third rail topic, dude. It's going to, I mean, we already are. I mean, 9/11. I mean, there's so many different conversations like this that nobody wants to touch because the implications of understanding what really happened goes to the core of all of our institutions in our country. I mean, this was lied about and covered up from the fucking Supreme Court justice down to the Dallas Police Department. And that's why people are like, oh, conspiracies, nobody could ever keep conspiracies under wrap. No. That's not true at all. All you need is a few players involved to maintain a narrative. And of course, the media, or to create the narrative, and then the media to maintain that narrative. I don't care how many decades it's been, as long as those institutions are in place to cover that shit up, the truth will never really come out.
Yeah. The easiest in the JFK assassination, the glue that everything together is that people were told, FBI agents, starting from the Warren commissioners themselves, they were told at the top, like, look, if you look into this, you might find out about a little incident in Mexico City where Lee Harvey Oswald's worked, meeting with the Cubans. And oh, by the way, the CIA was LBJ knew this. He didn't say, the CIA basically was saying someone was there that that J. Edgar Hoover says wasn't Oswald, and the CIA was saying it was Oswald. So that probably would have tipped LBJ off that something weird was going on. The point of what I'm saying is you have LBJ telling all these Warren commissioners, look, we need you to go out there and come to the right answer for your country because nuclear war depends on it. Because if you follow this thing and it shows that there was a conspiracy with China or Russia, the American people are going to demand a retaliation that's going to lead to nuclear war. So that if everybody knew, like, hey, we're not telling the truth, but the reason we're not telling the truth is because we're trying to protect it from a conspiracy finding to stop nuclear war, then that's easy. So, and so if someone saw something kind of fishy, it would be easy for a good, reasonable person to write that off as, yeah, it's under wraps because it was really Russia.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it gets into
even Earl Warren said that.
Everything is national security. We can't talk about this because of national security. Yet, no, it wasn't Lee, but it wasn't what you guys think it is. We can't really get into this because of national security, which is just such horseshit. That's just a way to continue to obfuscate the truth. And then you get into, your I don't know how much you get into it in season 2, but you're David Atlee Phillips of the world. The guy who pretty much ran the CIA in the Western Hemisphere, who was one of Oswald's handlers. All this shit. I mean, this information is like way out there. But I do find that interesting that not only just the Kennedy assassination, so many other things. Like, yeah, it wasn't the official story that we told you, but we can't get into it because of national security because, you guys, the plebs, just couldn't handle how deep this goes. When in fact, it's just belies larger fuckery and criminal activity from the top down, dude. Like I said, from your CIA, FBI, Supreme Court down to the Dallas Police Department. In this case, anyway.
Right. Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, that's what's the thing about the JFK chokeholds is we kind of lay out all the different things that have been definitively proven. Like, for example, the best chapter we have one on the obstruction of justice. So like the ongoing obstruction of justice over all the years. And starting at the Warren Commission, going up through the House Select Committee on Assassinations, the ARRB, the Secret Service burned files when the ARRB started to collect them. They just went and burned the files. It's crazy. They do whatever people do. These agencies do whatever they want with no recourse. The book, that chapter, there's a lot of good stuff in the book. There's stuff about prior plots, the Chicago plots and the Tampa plots.
The Miami, what was it? Joseph Willie Somerset and Joseph
Miami
Miltier
plots.
down in Miami. Yeah, they are on tape. I remember. God, what movie was it? It was the John Barber movie where they had tapes of those guys back in the day. The Jim Garrison tapes, I think it was, where they had recordings of Joseph Miltier and Willie Somerset talking about, are they really going to try and kill him? And, talking about the plot in Miami. But like you said, there was one in Chicago. There was more than one. But getting into, regardless of what anybody thinks about Trump, he was supposed to unveil and unlock a bunch of stuff. And, obviously presidents, they run stuff, but they don't really, really run stuff. Right. And from what I hear, he said to Judge Napolitano, he was like, Judge, if you saw what I saw in these fucking files, you wouldn't release it either. It's not about necessarily getting to the truth. Yeah. Like I said, this goes to the heart of so many of our institutions if this truth is really revealed. Well,
yeah, and it's like, who could still be alive is one question.
Yeah.
Well, Ruth Payne's still alive. Person's still alive. We'll talk about her more this season. But the other person that could be alive is, the guy that killed Officer Tippit, whoever that is. The guy that was impersonating Oswald all these years, all those instances, at the shooting range and buying the car and, at Bolton Ford when Oswald was in Russia, buying 10, renting 10 trucks or buying 10 trucks under Oswald's name. It's just crazy, man.
It's absolutely wild, dude. And this is shit that was going on in 1963 and, prior to 1963, doubles, shit like that. Like, I wonder, I interviewed Judith Baker, Oswald's gal, and she was in, whatever, you could take whatever she said with a grain of salt, but it was just interesting to hear her talk. But it was, obviously they painted Oswald as this patsy of sorts, but I wonder how much he knew. I think he knew some fuckery was going on, but he couldn't say anything because he had kids and like, we're going to kill your kids, we're going to kill your wife. I wonder how much he knew about all of the different, you're the fake Oswald, and how they were maneuvering him into the Texas School Book Depository. I can't imagine what he was thinking working there. I mean, he was working there for however long before Kennedy was shot, but once he heard Kennedy was shot, I wonder if he was like, I think I said this in our first episode, the first conversation, like, you motherfuckers. He had to have known at that point, like, you guys just set me the fuck up. And that realization.
Yeah, I don't think that he knew at that moment. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's all right. I'm just wondering.
Only reason I would.
I'm just any of the double stuff, like all this stuff was going on behind him, and he had no freaking clue. I mean, granted, you had your DeMoran shields and your Payne were kind of moving him around, this and that. But while at the same time, you got these doubles, like you said, buying cars, doing all this stuff in his name, and he has no clue about it. I mean, it's just crazy, this whole, whoa, what a tangled web we weave. And this is 1963. He's got all this duplicitous action taking place.
I think so. You would, let's say Oswald was framed, okay? He would have had to go to the Texas Theater. Someone told him to go there. Right.
Yeah.
That's what that looks like if he was framed. So he's still complying with what he's being told.
True.
So that's why I would say, like, he may not have known. Like, he knew something was going on for sure, but he may not have known. And that's the whole, like, was Oswald a CIA asset? Was he FBI? That's kind of where that comes in. And that's also where, have you heard of John Armstrong in the book Harvey and Lee?
I have not. No, I'm thinking of Lee and Me, Judith's book.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So Harvey and Lee, I'm reading it right now. I'll say this. It's so hard to find. It's always sold out everywhere. It's only available as a hardcover. It's like 300. I got one for $300 on eBay. Okay. Like, there's, for whatever reason, it's impossible to find. It's always sold out. He spent a month, a year for like 20 years going to the National Archives and just going through every document. This guy, John Armstrong, he's independently wealthy, so he can kind of do whatever he wants. And basically he put together, he found all these instances of conflicts in the document with Oswald's records, right? Like, hey, he's supposed to be at this school. He's supposed to be at junior high school in New Orleans for the fall of 9th grade, but why are there all these people who say that he was at Stripling Junior High School in Texas at that time? And then it's like, well, okay, where are the Stripling school records? Well, funny enough, we have the guy talking about how he gave those records to the FBI the next day. Why does the FBI know where Oswald went to school in 9th grade, and why are they going to take all the records from that 9th grade school the day after the assassination?
Well, I think this gets back to kind of that Civil Air Patrol, 16, 17 years old. I think that's where he kind of got recruited out of, if not the Marines.
Yeah. So what John Armstrong's theory is that, so let me say, there's two things in Armstrong's book. One is research and two is theory, okay? The research is indisputable, and that's what I'm including in my podcast. Okay.
Right. And
the research is just stuff like conflicting documents, like report card from 8th grade that's in the Warren Report volumes says that he was there for 78 days in the fall of 8th grade in New Orleans. But he also has a report card from Public School 44 in New York that says he was there for the entirety of fall semester there.
Under the same name?
Can't be in two places at the same time.
Under the same
name.
What?
Same name. And then here's where it gets fun. So then Armstrong, because he's got money and he's obsessed with this, he wants to find it out. He's like onto something. He goes and interviews everyone he can find. He interviews literally everybody. Okay. And he finds that there's two different people that look different, that refer to themselves different. One of them refers to himself as Harvey, and he's like tiny and scrawny. And the other one refers to himself as like big and strong. And he's like the biggest kid in the class. And it's a difference of like 10 inches. And we have multiple records, doctor's visits, like school physicals that show them at the same year, there's a 10-inch discrepancy over and over again. So he kind of zooms in. He's embrace simultaneous, the exact timeline. And he calls it one of them Harvey and one of them Lee. The one we know from history is Harvey. It's the one that was arrested. That's the one that was shot by Ruby.
Yeah.
The one that impersonated him and did all the impersonating of him, that probably killed J.D. Tipp. That's the guy that's sitting in that car, in Carl Mather's car. That's Lee, who then got on a cargo plane and flew to an Air Force base with Robert Vinson, this guy who, I mean, if you believe all the witnesses that lay everything is clear except for who the shooter was. I'm not saying you should believe every witness, but I'm saying there's enough witnesses for you to construct a story based on witness testimony.
Who was it? I'm gonna massacre the first name. Akila Clemens or something like that.
Well, yeah.
Wasn't her eyewitness that
she saw two witnesses?
Yeah.
Yeah, she saw she said the shooter was a bigger guy, and the other guy was a scrawny guy. So yeah, I mean, it's the day of, back to John Armstrong's theory, and I'm not his theory, but I do think that it deserves analysis because it could be right. Okay,
for sure.
His theory is that on the day of the assassination, it's all about brown shirt, white shirt. Okay, so Oswald, the one that we know and love from history, well, maybe not love, but know, you could grow to love him, maybe. Anyway, arrested with the brown shirt. He was wearing a brown shirt at the school book depository. Okay, but the guy in the window, people in the window say they saw a guy with a white T-shirt. They didn't see a brown shirt. The people said they saw a guy running out of the back of the school book depository. Look, I was wearing a white shirt, not a brown shirt. When Oswald's arrested, he's got the brown shirt on. All the Tippit witnesses said the shooter had a jacket with a white T-shirt underneath it. They didn't say there's a brown shirt. Now you can always say, well, the jacket was zipped up and it was obscuring the brown shirt.
Or he could have taken off the brown shirt and left the white shirt.
Yeah. So, but the point is, there's a white shirt guy that's doing all the bad things, and the brown shirt guy is the one we get arrested. You know what I mean? Then maybe that might be grasping at.
Well, no, I mean, again, this goes back to,
But what's very compelling? No, what's very compelling about the Armstrong book is just the documentary evidence. You know, the stuff that's in the National Archives that's conflicting evidence, that's the heart of what I'm focused on, because it's suitable. It's not, so yeah, that's a lot of that'll come out, and it's going to be a fun season, and I'm finishing up the episode that'll come out like December 13th today. So there you go.
He's got a big day tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. But it's interesting, like they said in JFK, man, they were putting Oswald together like a dummy corporation. Like all these different attributes of him doing this and this and this. I mean, God, going back from when he defected to freaking Russia and come back with a Russian gal, like that just never happens, man. There was just so much going on around this guy. And going back to we were talking about, the multiple different attempts on Kennedy's life, talking to Judith Baker, she had said, Oswald really loved Kennedy. He was they had him by the balls because they made him do XYZ because of the threat against his family. But supposedly, according to her, and I've heard it more than once, where he was the source of the phone call in Chicago or other places saying they're going to kill Kennedy. He was trying to tip people off. I don't know whether it was James Hosty or other different parts of the FBI or just somebody. They were trying to say what was going on because he knew he wasn't a stupid guy. Oswald, he was early 20s, but he was a very smart motherfucker. And I think he started catching wind of what was happening, so he's attempting to alert people. I don't know how much that's true because this is coming off of Judith Very Baker's.
Well, it's true that the FBI informant that let them know about the Chicago plot's name was Lee. They don't know anything else about him.
Well, geez, of all the names, of all the possible freaking names, really?
I know, but that is true, and that's a fact. So, but yeah, man, hey, I appreciate you having me on, and yeah, tomorrow will be an exciting day. Hopefully, they actually put me in this documentary, and it's not embarrassing that I told everyone I'm in it when I'm not really. But
well, it's gonna be what's gonna be, and some one-off documentary doesn't change the work that you've done and the book you've written, and who you truly are and the information you're trying to get out. I understand. People are always trying to, malign people who don't necessarily fall into the certain narrative, but keep doing what you're doing, my man. I'm a huge fan, Matt Crumpton, and the documentary is JFK, What the Doctor Saw, and the book is called, help me out. What's the book and what's the...
That's the documentary.
And the book is called
The JFK Assassination Chokeholds.
Okay. And as we approach here the 60th, wow, I can't even believe it's been 60 years, 60th anniversary of the death of the president that still We're still trying to put the pieces together. It's crazy. It's crazy. This is the world we still live in. But Mr. Crumpton, I definitely appreciate you, man, and I'm so looking forward to season 2, season 3, and beyond.
Thanks, Jeffrey. I appreciate you, man.
Yeah. This has been Matt Crumpton. Shout out any social networking week we can find your show. Where can we be the best one-stop shop to get into everything you're into?
Yeah. SolvingJFKpodcast.com. That's got all the transcripts and the citations. And I'm on X, which I'll probably keep calling Twitter.
Good for you.
And Facebook, they're not as much. And then Instagram and TikTok too. But really, if you really want to talk to me, Twitter is where to reach me, because that's like where I hang out on Twitter. TikTok and Instagram are like not my native home.
Right. Well, I mean, with something to promote like you do, it's good to like kind of utilize all the different resources. You know what I mean? Because like you definitely have a cool message, and what you're doing is is definitely useful. Hang on for a second before we shut down here. I want to ask you a quick question. But this has been Matthew Crumpton. I so appreciate your time, bro. Keep doing what you're doing. You are absolutely crushing it. Even though it's been 60 years, man, this is still a very timely conversation. For fuck's sake, they just arrested somebody in the Tupac murder, and that's been almost 30 years. So some of these unsolved crimes, man. There's a lot of meat on this bone, so I appreciate your time. Thank you guys so much for joining us for another episode. Peace and so much love. Stay tuned. There will always be more. Much love.